Begin today at the Mishnah on Daf Nun Hey Amud Aleph. Zok the Heilige Mishnah. HaNeder min haDagan. A person makes a neder not to have any anah from dagan, from grain, but he used specifically this term of dagan. Okay, so dagan in Lashon Kodesh means when you the crop of the grain, you make it a big pile of all the kernels of the grain. That's usually what the term dagan refers to. So therefore, also b'pul hamitzri. This will include also pul hamitzri, which is some kind of beans that also is used in the same way that you make a pile of it, similar to grain. Yavish, but that's only when it's dry, and therefore there's a pile made out of it. But we learned right in the previous Mishnah, if it's moist, so then you eat it like a vegetable. It's not made in a pile, like a grain. Divrei Rab Meir, this is Rab Meir's opinion. Chachamim say, Eina asur ela b'chameishes haminim. When you use the term dagan, this only includes the 5 different grains, which are the chitim, the seirim, the wheat, barley, rye, spelt, and oats. Those are the chameshes haminim that you make a bracha maitzia on them or a mezainis on them when you eat. So they are what's usually the kernels that you make a pile of. But other things are not included. Rab Meir says, Hanoider min hatvua. A person makes the neder not to eat from grain, and he uses a different expression. He uses the term tvua. Okay, so tvua also means grain, but he didn't use specifically the word dagan. Dagan means that you make a pile of it. So because he's using the term tvua, eina asa ela mechameshes haminim, so Rab Meir also says that this only includes the 5 grains. Avla noidim and dagan. But if your neder was and you use the term dagan, then asa bakel. Then you also not only with the 5 grains, but also other beans and things like that you make piles of them. So this is not only the pul hamitzri that he mentioned before, but really other things as well that you make piles of them. But you're still allowed to eat fruits from the trees or vegetables that you don't usually make piles of them like it is with dagan. So to Gemara, lemeimre, shall we say, the dagan that according to Rab Meir, what does the term dagan mean? Called the midgan mashma. Anything that you usually gather and make a pile of it, that's included in the word dagan. But Masav Rav Yosef asks from what it says in the pasuk. This is a pasuk that speaks about the Yidden that strengthened themselves in giving trumas and maisris, a kufroitz hadavar, and Yidden were encouraged, or Yidden were strengthened. Hirbu b'nei Yisrael, so Yidden added and they gave a lot of maisris, which is reishis, dagan, tirosh, v'yitzar. So it mentions here that they gave the maiser from dagan, and then it adds v'chol tvua sada, and all the other tvua grains from the field, l'roiv. So the question is, v'yomre dagan called the midgin mashma. If you're going to say that the term dagan does not only include the 5 grains, but it includes all other things, all other grains in the field that you make a pile out of them. So my kefroitz adava hirbu. So why does the pasuk say kefroitz adava hirbu? The question really is from the end of the pasuk. The Ran, it seems like his guidance is here in the Gemara. The real question of the Gemara is when the pasuk concludes v'chol tevuas asada, and all other grains of the field, why does it have to add all other grains of the field? It says in the beginning, dagan. And according to Rab Meir, the term dagan includes not only the 5 grains, but it includes all things that you make piles out of them. So it's you see here in the pasuk that it splits it. There's dagan, and then there's v'chol tvus asada. Omer Abaye, so Abaye answers, according to Rab Meir, when it adds v'chol tvus asada la'asuye peiris se'ilim v'yerek, the term tvus asada in this pasuk actually refers to fruits and vegetables. So dagan taka includes not only the 5 grains, it includes all other kinds of beans or different kinds of things that you make piles out of them, like the grain. And tvus asada is something else that refers to fruits and vegetables.
That's Pashas Haksur.
I don't know. That's the tvuas hasada. The Gemara is soon going to explain that because it says tvuas hasada. So tvuas hasada means different things that you have out in the field. So that includes fruits and vegetables. Rab Meir said in the Mishnah, you make a neder from tvua. So here Rab Meir says that tvua only includes the 5 grains. Rabbi Yechanan says, Hakoil Moedim, everybody agrees, even though in our Mishnah we had it only Rab Meir saying so, but it's not only Rab Meir, everybody agrees, B'noider min hatvua, your neder was not to eat tvua, she'enos elam v'chameshes haminim. That includes only the 5 minim of grain, not anything else. Tani Namiyachi, we learned this in a Braisa as well. Shavin, everybody agrees. B'noidim min hatvua, the language of your neder was not to eat from tvua. She'ein aser ela mehei aminim, that it's only the 5 grains. The Gemara asks on this, Pshita, isn't that obvious? how should I think that tvua includes anything other than the 5 grains? The term dagon, so dagon means something you make a pile out of. So it includes other things that you make a pile from them. But tvua, it obviously means that the tvua means grain. How should I think it means anything else? So the Gemara says not necessarily, because ma'o de teime, I would think to say tvua kol mili mashma, that maybe the term tvua does mean everything. We're going to see soon in the Gemara that the Aramaic translation of the word tvua is alalta. The word alalta means all the income or the shvach, the things that you feel gave out and comes into the home. Alalta means to elevate or to bring in. So all kinds of things that you bring into the home from the field. That's really the translation of the word tvua in Aramaic, alalta. So maybe you would have thought that the term tvua does not refer only to grain. So therefore, Kamash Malon, that's why he's teaching you over here, Rabbi Yechanan, that the loy mashma kol mili, that the word tvua does not mean, when people use the term tvua for a neder, it does not mean everything that comes into the home. Rather, it means just grains, and it only is the 5 grains. And now we go back to the pasuk that we quoted before. Masiv Rav Yosef asks the question. The pasuk that we quoted before said, "Ukifroit tzadavar hirbu b'nei Yisrael chulu." That Yidden, when they encouraged and they were strengthened to give the Maisre, so it says in the beginning of the pasuk Dagon, and then afterwards it says Tvua Sasodeh. And how did we explain before, according to Rav Meir, what does Tvua Sasodeh mean? It includes peiris and yerakis, fruits and vegetables. So I see that Tvua Sasodeh does not mean the grains; it means fruits and vegetables. And now we're saying that Tvua means dafke, the 5 grains. So Rav explains Tvua lechud. The expression of tvua that this person says in the neder, that's one thing, and that means only the 5 grains, and tvuas sadeh lechod. And the expression of the pasuk where it says tvua of the field, that's more inclusive. That includes also fruits and vegetables. And that's the pshat in the pasuk according to Rav Meir. So now in connection to this, so as I mentioned, the translation in Aramaic of the word tvua is alalta. The Gemara brings a story that we'll discuss this term alalta. What does it mean? So Bar Mar Shmuel, the son of Shmuel, so Pocket, he commanded before he passed away, the Litnun Tleiser Alfe Zuzi Lerove, that they should give 13,000 zuz to Rove, and he said, Min Alalta, that it should be from the Alalta, the Nar Panya, that's by the river of Panya. So now this term Alalta is this income, what they bring in from the field by the area of Nar Panya, that's what should be given to Rava. 13,000 zuz in the value of this alalta. So the question is, what does alalta mean? Like I said, alalta is the translation of the word tvua, but the question still is, it's not clear how you define alalta. So Shalcha Rava l'kamed Rav Yosef, Shalcha Rava, that is sent a shliach to Rav Yosef to ask him the question, alalta heichi mikriya. What does alalta refer to? What does it include? Rav Yosef answered, masniti. It's not masnisim, but masnita. This is a braisa. What did we say before in the braisa that we quoted? Vishavin. Everybody agrees. B'neider minatvua. When a person makes a neder not to eat tvua, shein also ela mechamesh saminim. What does the term tvua mean? Tvua means only the 5 grains. And therefore, what Rav Yosef was saying is, since alalta is the Aramaic translation of the word tvua, so it only includes the 5 grains, not more than that. Amalei Abaye. So Abaye asked on this psak of Rav Yosef, Mi domi, how could you compare? Tvua lemashma lemachameshes aminim. Yes, it's true that the term tvua in Lashon Kodesh is used and means only 5 grains. But alalta, the term alalta, even though it's a translation of the word tvua, but nevertheless alalta includes much more. Kol mili mashma. It includes everything that you bring in. Like I mentioned before, the word alalta means comes up, like what you bring up, what you bring into your house, the income that you bring into your house. So it includes from anything else as well. They brought the answer of Rav Yosef to Rava, that Rav Yosef said that it includes only the 5 grains. So Amar Rava said, this was not even my question at all. The alalta kol mili mashma, that definitely, like Abaya had said, that alalta is a term that includes all kinds of income. But hadadu boili. When I was asking the question from Rav Yosef, really this was my question. Schar batim. If you're renting out a house and you're getting income from renting, or schar svinos, you're renting out a boat and you're getting the income of renting the boat. Right, we're in the middle of Nun Hey Amud Aleph. So that was my question. What is the halacha regarding this? Is this included in the term alalta? Alalta means, again, the income that a person gets. Why not? Mi amrinan, do I say, kivin de pachasan, since if you own a house or you own a boat, So the actual physical house and the boat, they depreciate. Their value goes down slowly over time with the usage of this boat or house. So it gets ruined and the value goes down. So therefore, lav alaltahi. It's not included in the word alalta. Alalta means something that consistently gets better and gives you income. This, on one hand, it does give you income, but gradually, very slowly, it also, its actual value depreciates, and therefore that's not included in the term alalta. Oidilma, or perhaps kivin de lo yidia pachsayu, because this that they depreciate is not something that it's noticeable because it happens very gradually. So alalti, this is included, the income that you have from the rental of a home or a boat is included in the term alalta, that it's something that goes up in value. In other words, it's giving you income. That was really what his question was. As he wanted to know, when this son of Shmuel said that they should give him from 13,000 zuz of alalta, does that also include from this income that comes from the rentals of homes or of a boat? If what?
It's giving him zuzim.
Yeah, but he said Teresa alfi zuzah min alalta though. He added, that's why he added right away min alalta. The Mefarshim actually say that he added min alalta so that his children that might not want to give to Rava shouldn't say, he said he should give you 13,000 zuz money. We don't have cash to give you. He Dafka added alalta, which includes any kinds of income, so that they shouldn't be able to they shouldn't be able to avoid giving what they're supposed to Rava. But so Rava wanted to know whether this includes these rentals. It's also part of this term alalta. Now, Amrua Rabbanon Kamei de Rav Yosef. Rabbanon, so they went and told Rav Yosef what Rava said. That Rava basically didn't agree to Rav Yosef that said that alalta is a translation of tevuah and it only means the 5 grains. And Rava had a completely different question. So Omar, Rav Yosef said, if he doesn't need me to answer his questions, he knows on his own, so if he knows himself, so why is he sending me a messenger to get an answer for his question? Ikbed Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef was very particular about this. He was upset about this, that Rava sends to ask him a question and then Rava comes to his own conclusion. Not like Rav Yosef. So what happened? Shoma Rava heard that Rav Yosef was makbir on him, that he was upset with him. So v'asal kamei b'mayla yom kippuri. So he came on Erev Yom Kippur to appease Rav Yosef. Ashkechei, so he found l'shamei, he found a servant of Rav Yosef, davakamozik kamei kased achamra. His one of his servants that was preparing the wine, the way they used to do it in those days, with water to prepare the wine to be able to drink. So Amalei Havli, so Rava said to the servant, give me the opportunity, the amzigle. I'm going to prepare the wine to give for Rav Yosef. And the amzigle, no, I'm going to prepare it. Yavle, so he gave him the ability to become mazik, and he prepared the wine. Rava prepared the wine, kasad achamra, this cup of wine. Then kikashasi, when Rav Yosef drank the wine, don't forget, Rav Yosef was blind. The Gemara says in many places, Rav Yosef didn't see who's standing there in front of him. So he didn't see if it was the servant or was someone else. And then when Rav Yosef drank the wine, Amar, Rav Yosef said, Hadein mizge, dami lemizge de Rava. The way the wine was prepared today, the way it was diluted with the water, I recognize that this is the way Rava usually prepares it. Berei Rav Yosef bar Chama, the son of Rav Yosef bar Chama. Amalei, so the servant actually said to him, yeah, who knew? It's actually him. Rava is here. He prepared it for you. Amalei, so Rav Yosef turns to Rava and tells him, do not sit down on your knees. In other words, don't rest. Stand up, ad omrutli pirusha the hadein milsa, until you will tell me the interpretation of the following pasuk. What's the meaning of this pasuk where it says umi midbar matana, umi matana nachliel, umi nachliel bomis? This is a pasuk in Parshas Chukas. What's the meaning of this pasuk? Tell me the meaning of this pasuk. So as we'll see, the pshat of this pasuk that Rav is going to explain is that it's talking about the importance of anava, of humility, when you learn Torah. So the Ran over here says that Rav Yosef was trying to give Rava a message that when you learn Torah, you have to be humble. You send me to ask me a question, and then you come and argue, and you have your own opinions. When you learn Torah, you have to be humble. That was his message here. So Amalei, so Rava answered and said as follows: Kivin sha'is adam es atzmai kemidbar. When a person will turn himself into a midbar. What is midbar? What's a place of a desert? Shu mufkar lakail. It's ownerless. It's open for everybody to be there. So when you treat yourself like a midbar, then Torah nitleim matana. Then the Torah you learn will be your gift. It'll be yours. That's what it means when it says Shanema. The pasuk here is saying, Umi midbar. When you're in a place, in a condition, you consider yourself like a midbar, matana. Then the Torah is your gift. That's the first point of Torah. Then, once the Torah is given to you as a gift, you become Hashem's inheritance. Shanema, the pasuk continues, it says, from having the Torah as a matana, you become Hashem's inheritance. And then, once you become Hashem's inheritance, you get elevated to greatness. Shanema, as the pasuk continues, from being Hashem's inheritance, you go up to high places. Then the pasuk continues and says, but if a person then is haughty in his eyes, so then HaKadosh Baruch Hu mashpile, the Eibusher will lower the person down. Shanema, as the pasuk says, hagai. From the hilltops you go down into the valley. If you're gonna see yourself and your own mitzias as being something which is great, so then you fall back down into the valley. And not only this, you fall so low that you become impressed into the ground. Shanema, the pasuk there says, "V'nishkafa al pnei hayishimain." Pasuk, the v'nishkafa, the Gemara here is dashing the word mashkaif like a threshold that people step on it and it gets pressed into the ground. Even after a person gets thrown down so low, but if the person will do tshuva, Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Eibusher will lift the person up again. Shanema kol gei yinaseh. That a person that considers himself to be low like a valley, the Eibusher raises him up again. That's the pshat in this pasuk. Rav is teaching the pasuk, and he got the message. He got the message from Rav Yosef. Yeah. So this obviously he's teaching the pasuk, and it applies to himself. All included, sure. So this pasuk obviously is the source of this whole Indian that we learned before. So we're learning this in Erev Chanukah. And you get to what's the real Indian of Torah. Torah Secha, the Eibusher's Torah. The pshat that the Rebbe says in so many places, when you get to the Lashon, that it says regarding Mayim Mein by Nechashim Vakrabim Yeshbai, that the Mayim refers to Torah. And when you have a bar and Mayim Mein by, and you don't have the bittul of the Torah, like Mayim, Chazal say that Mayim goes down, right? And that's why a person has to learn Torah like water that goes down. If you don't have that bittul, so that even if you learn all the chacham in the world of Torah, doesn't matter. You're going to have snakes and scorpions crawling around in your mind because you don't have the bittul. So over here as well, he's saying the only way Torah will be yours as a gift is if you have the bittul of learning Torah. If you're learning Torah and it's all, you stick out like a mountain, that it's you, so then the Torah does not stick with you. The Torah is getlichkeit. It can't stick to a person that's a yesh, that feels himself. Okay, going back to the halacha of the Nedarim. Person that makes a neder from grain. So Tanya, we learned in Abraisa, noidim and dogon, person that makes a neder. And the expression is dogon. So asa apapula mitzri yavish, like the Mishnah said, so this includes also the dried out beans, and these Egyptian beans that are dry, because then you make a pile out of it. But umutter balach, you're allowed to eat them when they are still moist, because then it's eaten like a vegetable. Umutter ba'ayris, the term dagan does not include rice. Bechilka, which is the grains, the kernels of wheat that are split into two, to halves. Betirgis, when they're split into thirds. Ubetisni, when they're split into four. In other words, the term dagan only includes whole kernels, not when they're split into any parts.
Even though you make piles.
It looks like once it's split, I guess you don't make piles out of it. I guess it's used in a different way. But when then it's Hanaidim and Peiris Hashana, person that makes a neder, and the expression of the neder is from the Peiris of this year. So what does Peiris of this year mean? Also b'chol Peiris Hashana. So that Isser includes all Peiris that grow in that year. But umutter b'gedayim, he will be allowed to have a na from gedayim, which are goats, or betloyim, or sheep, or b'chalav, milk, or b'beitzim, eggs, or b'gezalas, and chicks. Because these things are not called Peiris. Peiris refers to things that actually grow from the ground. But if the person used the expression that says that my neder is not to eat from what grows during this year, a lie upon myself, so then asr b'kulam. Then it'll be asr from all these things, even from the animals and even from all these other things that was mentioned there, that they all grow during the year, even though they don't grow from the ground, but they grow. If a person says that his neder is not to eat from the peiris of the ground, what is peiris of the ground? Asr b'chol peiris haaretz. He's not allowed to eat any types of peiris of the ground, which actually includes both what we call today fruits, that you make a bayre pri eitz on them, and even what you make a bayre pri adam on them. Vegetables as well, anything that grows from the ground. But umutter b'chmein upitriyais. But you're allowed to eat the truffles and mushrooms. And the reason is because they don't really grow from the ground. They grow above the ground. They're connected to the ground, but they don't really get their nourishment from the ground. This Gemara is going to explain now. V'im omar gidule karka olai. He didn't say peiris ha'aretz, but he said the growth of earth. Then asa b'kulam. Then he's also from all these things that grow from the ground, including also these truffles and mushrooms, because they are growing on the ground. So the Gemara now asks him this: how can we make this distinction? V'ramini, I'll ask you a question from the halacha that it says regarding brachas. The Mishnah there says, Al davar she'ein gidulei min ha'aretz, something that does not grow from the ground. What's the bracha? Oimer, the bracha is shahakal niyeh b'dvarei. And Vitanya, and we learned what's included in this category, the things that don't grow from the ground. Ala melach, salt, vala zomis, salt water, val kmein, upitries, and truffles, and mushrooms. Oimer shahakal niyeh b'dvarei, the bracha on all of them is shahakal niyeh b'dvarei, because it does not grow from the ground at all. So how could you say that these mushrooms and truffles, even though it's not called peiris ha'aretz, but it is called gidule karka, which means it does grow from the ground to some extent. It's connected to the ground at least, so it's getting some growth from the ground. But over here it says shahakal niyeh b'dvarei, meaning that it doesn't grow from the ground at all. Amar Abaye, so Abaye explained, mirbu rabu me'ara. They do grow connected to the ground. But meinek ma'avira yonki, but the actual nourishment or the actual sustenance that sustains it to actually grow more and more, that comes from the air. They grow from the air, from the moistness in the air, from the rain. Like when it rains a lot, it grows. So yes, it is connected to the ground, but it grows from the air. V'lo ma'ar, it doesn't grow from the ground. So therefore, it's considered to be gidule karka because it's actually connected to the ground, but it's not called peiris ha'aretz because it's not something that grows from the soil of the ground, from the nutrients in the soil that there is in the ground. But this answer from Abaye doesn't fit into the lashon that the Braisa says regarding the brachas. V'hakatani, but the Braisa says al davar she'ein gidulei min haaretz. It's saying that a shahakol is only on something that does not grow at all from the ground. So if you're saying that these mushrooms do grow from the ground, they're connected to the ground, even though they get most of their nourishment from the air, but nevertheless they do grow from the ground. So why do you make a bracha shahakol on them? So the Gemara says, you're right, you're going to have to switch the lashon of that Mishnah, or maybe Braisa. Tani, you have to read over there, al davar she'ein yoinik min ha'aretz. Not that it doesn't grow from the ground, because mushrooms and truffles are actually connected to the ground, but it doesn't get its nourishment from the soil and the nutrients of the ground. It gets its nourishment from the air, from the moistness in the air. Therefore, mushrooms are not included in peiris ha'aretz. A person makes a neder not to have anah from a garment. So mutter b'sak, he's allowed to wear sackcloth, which is usually made from goat's hair. It's not made from the regular material that you make garments out of. Ubi yiriyah, and also yiriyah, which is some kind of a thicker garment, which is a sheet or something. It's made thicker than a regular material. Ubi chamila, chamila is even thicker. It's also a kind of a material. Some say maybe it's a curtain, something that's very thick. It's not usually made to wear as a garment. 1 second. Omar, he said, kainam tzemer alai. Person's neder is not to have any anah from wool. So then, mutal eskases begizei tzemer. He's allowed to cover himself with wool shearings or with the fleece of wool, but it's not yet prepared and made as wool that's material to be used for a garment. Or if a person said, kainam, the Bachir adds, or not, okay, not kainam, but pishton, oila alai, that I will not have flax to be on me. So, mutale eskasa is ba'anitze pishton. He's allowed to cover himself with bundles of flax, because he meant flax that's used in the material for a garment, not bundles of flax. Rabbi Yehuda says it depends in what context the person made the neder. You have to look at the circumstance that the person made the neder, what the lashon means. So the chiddush of Rabbi Yehuda is you're not only looking at the actual word, but you're looking at the circumstance he made the neder in. So it's going to be according to the individual when he made the neder. To'an v'hiziyah, if this person was carrying a bundle of flax or this bundle of the shearings from the wool, v'hiziyah, and he was sweating from this, and there was a bad odor from his body. So and therefore as a result of this he says, kainam tzemer pishtim oila alai. I make a neder not to have wool or flax on me. So then what does that mean? That means he just doesn't want to carry this heavy load of the flax or wool. So then mutal eskasis, he's allowed to use the garments that are made from flax or wool. But and he's not allowed to throw a bundle of the flax and wool on his back, because you see clearly from the context that that's what his neder is about. Zok the Gemara Tanya, we learned in the Brayso some more details than what it said in the Mishnah regarding what's considered to be a garment. Hanaydim in aksus, person makes a neder not to wear a garment. So what does this include? Mutter besak, he's allowed to wear sackcloth that's made from the goat's hair. It's not made from the usual material of a garment, which is from wool. Ubiyiriya, and like the Mishnah said, also this thicker thing that's made from a sheet, ubachamila, or a curtain, also a thicker garment that a person doesn't usually wear. But v'aser, now the Brayso adds, the term ksos does include the following things: bepunda, which is a money belt, bepaskia, some other kind of belt, a thicker belt, or beskurtia, which the Gemara will explain what it is, or bekatavlia. Katavlia is some kind of a cloth that's made from actually leather. Va'ampalia, also leather, but it's made for some kind of a socks, shoes or socks, something like that. Oplinia, which is some kind of an apron, umechnesayim, and trousers or pants, v'koiva, and a hat. All of these are included in the term ksus, garment. So the Gemara goes back to one of them that it wasn't explained. My iskurti. What is this term iskurti, or it said before skurtia? Amarabba barbachane kituna detzala, the apron of the tanners, of the people that are working with the leather and the hide of the animals. Tanya, in a Brayso we learned, and this is actually a Brayso that's discussing the halachas b'negei to Shabbos. Shabbos, the rule is that you're only allowed to walk out on Shabbos with clothing that you're wearing as a garment. So then it's not like a bundle that you're carrying, can't carry on Shabbos. But if you're taking something that's not made to wear as a garment, but you're taking something then it becomes like a masa. You're just carrying a bundle, so that you're not allowed to carry on Shabbos. So the Brayso here gives certain rules about this, which is going to be a little bit different than a neder. And it's going to be actually, in a way, more stringent than a neder. Yoitzin, or actually more, it comes out to be actually more lenient than a neder. Yoitzin b'sak ava, you're allowed to walk out on Shabbos with a thick sackcloth. So even though before we said regarding a neder that when you say a garment, it does not include sackcloth, because the person doesn't usually wear that. But on Shabbos, if you're taking this thick sackcloth and you're wearing it as a garment, you're allowed to walk out with it on Shabbos. Ubisagus ava, and this is also some kind of a thicker cloth, which is made actually from wool, but it's made much thicker. It's also similar to a sackcloth. Ubiyiriya, bechamila, this thicker sheet or this thicker curtain. And you're walking, why is this person using all these thicker garments on Shabbos? He wants to shield himself from the rain. Aval, on Shabbos, you may not walk out, loy b'teva, not using a box to cover yourself, loy b'kupa, not covering yourself from the rain with a basket, loy b'machzeles, and not taking a mat to cover yourself because of the rain. Harayim, shepherds, yotzim b'sakim, are allowed to go out with sackcloth. So the Ran says, apparently, in the beginning of this Brayso, when it says sak ova, it didn't literally mean sackcloth, it means a garment which has a similar thickness to sackcloth. Here we're talking literally with these thick sacks. And not only shepherds, anybody could walk out with these thick sackcloths on Shabbos if you want to protect yourself from the rain. Chachamim are using what's common, that these shepherds would walk around with these sackcloths. So as the Mefarshim explained, the point of the difference between a neder and Shabbos is, when it comes to a neder, you have to look at the language he said, and if he says ksus, which is a garment, anything that's not usually used as a garment is not included. When it comes to Shabbos, though, even something that's not usually used as a garment, but if you're wearing it in the way of a garment, like a garment, because you want to protect yourself from the rain, you're allowed. Right? This is the famous shaila that comes when you get to using a towel that's not usually used as a garment, and you put it around your waist because you want to take it to the mikveh, so it's not something that's usually used for that purpose, but if you're using it in that way, it would be allowed. That's what comes out from this Gemara. I'm not pasking what the halacha b'payil is. Some say it's not allowed, some say it is allowed, but that's the point that this Gemara is saying. Even a garment that's not usually used in this way, but if you're using it as a garment, it's allowed. A box, though, never becomes a garment. So that's why even in the rain, you may not have a box over your head on Shabbos. Okay, Rabbi Yehuda hakayel lefia neder, that you have to look in the language of a neder, you also look at the context of how a person said it. So the Brayso says more details. Tanya, we learned. Keitzad, Omer Rabbi Yehuda hakayel lefia neder. What is it that Rabbi Yehuda said, that you go according to the person that made the neder? A person was wearing a wool garment, and it was becoming hot and painful for him, and therefore, as a result, he says, I make a neder that I should not wear these wool garments. So also lilbosh. So then he's not allowed to wear these wool garments. But a mutalitain, he's allowed to carry the sharings of wool on him because he never intended to asa that. On the other hand, a person is carrying this bundle of flax, vihizia, and he was sweating, and va'ama kainam pishtan oila alai, I make a neder that this flax should not be upon me. So then we know that he didn't want to carry them. So mutter lil boy, she's still allowed to wear garments that are made from this linen, from this flax, and va'aser litain, and he's not allowed to carry this linen, this flax, these bundles of flax, because that's what's giving him the pain. Okay.
Sure.